Hi. You're listening to Karl-Mikael Seiding's AI Alter Ego. This podcast is created based on my own writings, primarily from Substack. Spreadser AI focuses on investments in mental, physical, and financial health. Topics range from pure investment cases, which of course should never be considered financial advice, to my experiences and advice on training, nutrition, and sleep. In between, I talk about consciousness, meaning, free will, politics, science, psychedelics, perspective and meaning, and whatever I think can help make you become happy, productive, fulfilled, basically realize your full potential, or bliss out on purely hedonistic pursuits. You can actually read the podcast content too, on my Substack, if you're a premium member or during a 1-week free trial. Click the link in the show notes. If you're interested in more in-depth investing skills, you should check out theinvestingcourse.com. TIC, theinvestingcourse.com, meaning myself, is sponsoring this podcast. It's a 6-week online course where I teach how to find, analyze, invest, and evaluate publicly listed stocks. There is a Swedish version as well. The links are in the show notes. Imagine Galileo without a telescope. Imagine Newton without a watch. Imagine Einstein without mathematics. Imagine particle physicists without particle accelerators. Imagine doctors without microscopes or stethoscopes. Imagine carpenters without tools, trying to first make nails with their bare hands and then push them in by hand into pieces of wood crafted only using unprotected flesh and skin. Imagine equity analysts without basic skills in psychology, spreadsheets, economics, business administration, key business indicators and ratios, or macroeconomics. Where would humans be if we were not allowed to magnify our senses to detect electromagnetic waves outside the tiny spectrum of visible light? Imagine if it was illegal to measure gravitational waves or to look at distant astronomical objects with anything other than the naked eye, or to look inside the body using ultrasound X-rays or functional MRI. It would be crazy. Inquisition-level stuff. Witch hunting. Now imagine that all the tools I just mentioned were illegal, but guns, bombs, and vials of Ebola virus were handed out to kids in the grocery store. That's where we currently are with psychedelics. Basically, all informed scientists agree that LSD, MDMA, ibogaine, DMT, psilocybin, ketamine, 2CB, mescaline, and 100 other mind-expanding medicines are harmless, safe, non-toxic, non-addictive, and about as safe as going to the movies. In fact, they are actually safer if used correctly, in the right set and setting. Considering how unsafely and carelessly they are being used by millions of rave-goers, it's amazing how few people manage to hurt themselves compared to, for example, alcohol drinkers. Psychedelics really are that safe. Did you know that during the Woodstock Festival in 1969, when about 500,000 people showed up, instead of the planned 50,000, not a single occurrence of interpersonal violence was reported? Not one. Imagine if there had been 450,000 drunk football supporters instead, which is the accepted social norm. What is not safe, or particularly good for that matter, is administering tons of opioids and SSRIs to large portions of the population for long periods of time, including teenagers. Handing out guns in middle school would probably be less harmful. Yet, it's the vegetables, vines, mushrooms, cacti, and leaves like Salvia divinorum that have gotten a bad reputation and been criminalized, as if they were dangerous, toxic, and addictive, rather than the safe and effective medicines of healing that they truly are. Psychedelics are safe. We also know that they have a huge effect, so much so that you can't really do proper randomized controlled trials, because it's always obvious who is in the control group, the placebo group, and which subjects are which. We know they work. Actually, we know they work wonders. Just ask anyone who has tried. A large majority, at least 80%, rank their single trip as their most important experience in life, or at least among their top 3. And it's not just that everyone who has tried comes back amazed, awed, uplifted, or calm. Plenty of clinical trials show that psychedelics are incredibly effective tools for accessing the mind and helping it heal itself when stuck in a rut. Psychedelic substances reduce inflammation, increase neurogenesis and neuroplasticity. The trip itself is so far from ordinary experience, much like using a telescope or microscope shows us details and entire worlds hidden from our everyday view. It puts substance addictions, depression, neurotic behavior, anxiety, eating disorders, fears of dying, and so on into a perspective that makes those problems seem small, unnecessary, and easy to walk away from. Psychedelics can heal mental afflictions and enhance the experience of people who are already well. Psychedelics increase connection with other people and with nature. All of this has been thoroughly studied, with more research coming, including findings on healing brain injuries from strokes by reopening the critical window for recovery. Psychedelics work. This is what the ICPR conference, which I attended last year in the Netherlands, is mainly about. The hardcore research on how effective and how safe various psychedelic substances are. The Breaking Convention event in Exeter last week is more focused on figuring out why psychedelics work. How does set and setting affect the subjective experience for the test subject, and how does it affect the therapeutic outcome? How important is the subjective, hard-to-describe trip for the outcome? There is something called ontological shock, meaning a challenge to one's belief or assumption about the true nature of existence. Can the same results be achieved with non-hallucinatory psychoplastogens? Is it simply rewiring the brain that leads to healing in cases of substance addiction, depression, anxiety, or PTSD? Or is it something else? How important is the trip guide? They are part of the environment and influence the test subject's psychological state. What about Nalanda meditation tradition? How do its effects compare to psychedelics? Are they complementary or primary? Can the effects of believing, dreaming, or hallucinating that you were abducted by aliens be compared to the effects of an indescribable trip to hyperdimensional DMT entities? How about being the notes in your favorite classical piano piece, reliving a childhood trauma, experiencing running near the speed of light with a photon companion, or knowing firsthand what it is like to be a bat, or grass, or a snake? How similar are the effects of meditation, Kundalini traditions, or Vedantic practices to soaring through the realms of the unconscious on an extended intravenous DMT, ketamine, or the road of Toad, meaning 5-MeO-DMT spirit walk? These are the questions explored at Breaking Convention. They ask, why do psychedelics work? How should they be used? What protocols should be followed? Which substance for what use, and how widespread should it be? What about raves, where 95% of the substances are used? How important is preparation and debriefing by professionals? MDMA works as a customized treatment for PTSD, for connection, sharing, safety, love, for integrating difficult experiences and turning them into just memories, unable to hurt anymore. MDMA also works for meditation, for dancing, for making love. 5-MeO-DMT, also known as the road of Toad. Both DMT and 5-MeO-DMT are superfast acting and are quickly metabolized and fully out of the system within tens of minutes, yet they produce the strongest, weirdest, and totally immersive experiences of other universes and entities for what can feel like eternity. They can be used for soul-searching or for treating stroke patients. They might sound like the same stuff, and the molecules are almost identical, but their effects are very different. The Mount Everest of experiences. Psilocybin, the substance in magic mushrooms, grows in hundreds of species all over the world, often illegal, which is like making daffodils illegal. Psilocybin is good for enhancing a sense of meaning, connection, and for reducing death anxiety. It can be fantastic for music, meditation, self-healing, group entertainment, and more. By the way, you'll find DMT just about anywhere you look, including inside your own body and in orange peels. Having DMT be illegal is like criminalizing carrots. Then there is LSD, ketamine, ibogaine, 2CB, mescaline, which comes from the peyote cactus, salvia, and many other substances. Most of these are designer molecules not found in nature, but they can be equally effective. We have access to an immense toolkit for studying, healing, and enhancing the human experience. For personal and creative insight, meaning, connection, understanding, empathy, and personal growth. But the so-called food of the gods is inexplicably demonized. What researchers are trying to find out is why psychedelics work, because we already know they do work. To summarize, at Breaking Convention I got to see firsthand what research is being done on consciousness, subjective experiences, and on ways to measure and categorize the detailed phenomenology of tripping, and how various experiences and biological markers relate to therapeutic outcomes. What they are trying to find out is why psychedelics work, because we already know they do work, both for healing, for recreation, and for enhancing the human experience. By the way, do not try this at home. If you are going on a spirit walk, do it in a safe jurisdiction with experienced and safe guides and clean, controlled substances. Why not do it in a clinical study? I could connect you for an extended DMT study in the United Kingdom. Don't forget to check out theinvestingcourse.com. Read some of the raving reviews there and join the waiting list for the next cohort. Standing in line is free. I've had 0 complaints on the course and about 1,000 out of 1,000 satisfied participants. Even if some at first have thought that the fee's a bit steep, $1,000 is a price only people serious about their money are ready to pay for leveling up their investing skills. Everybody felt they got their money's worth several times over after the course. Links in the show notes. Investing in yourself, including your finances, is about enabling as durably meaningful a life as possible. This is Karl-Mikael Seedings AI signing off. See you again in a few days.